There are people on your path that will show up in key consequential moments with the help of a new perspective, a bit of wisdom, and a little chaos. In the hero's journey, after answering the call to adventure, the hero meets a guide to aid in the journey through the underworld. My guest today has repeatedly played this role in many of my own stories and in my evolution. David Block's music as the human experience and with Gone Gone Beyond, as well as his art, are referential guideposts for a generation of modern mystics. We discuss his process, time tunneling, presence, learning new mediums, speaking with trees, overcoming fear, detachment, and meaning. In many ways, David is as much a master of nothingness as he is of producing life-altering experiences and artifacts. If you want to support, we are grateful for every single like and subscribe on this video. Your feedback lets us know what you care about and want to share. And with that, I'm excited to share Get Authentic with David Block.
Do you use time tunnels?
What?
Do you use time tunnels?
What's that?
All right. Time tunneling is a thing where you imagine a future point, and in the future point, looking back at where you are right now from that future point.
No, but I want to do that. I've been doing a kind of similar but different thing where I was working on healing childhood trauma, where I would do these like quantum meditations where I would go visit my childhood self from a certain memory, challenging memory, whatever. And I would go back as this current self and be the person to comfort and console that part of me. So that I've done that kind of, I feel like that's time tunneling. It's time tunneling in reverse. Yes, I do that. And where it's like, I really go back to that time where I'm like, this person left, I felt abandoned, and I was like pounding on it, like, whatever, glass window or whatever, and glass window break. It was a glass window. It's a real memory, and then like,
mine was a door.
Yeah, something like that. And like, anyway.
Where did you learn that?
I don't remember. I feel like I've just do so many personal growth programs, and I'm interested in those kind of things. And I think once I learned experientially through meditation and psychedelics, probably, that time is not a line. It's like a holographic circle thing that I was just like, someone's like, you can't change the past, but you can change how you interpret the past. And I was like, maybe actually not actually. Maybe you can change the past. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, but I just know that I wanted to, I was like, I can do something about this.
Yeah. Well, I think that was going to be my next question is like, what's the difference between the story you tell yourself of an event that happened and, maybe some baseline objective truth of what actually happened? And in a sense, when you're doing that, like going back in time thing, and you're like talking to yourself,
it already happened, so it's not now.
Is it are you like reconciling something, or like, is there?
I feel like, it's like we're if I'm thinking of like, I'm consciousness in a meat sack vehicle thing. Like if I'm software in hardware, like hardware here, and I'm running software that like I want to reinstall or update the firmware of like what I'm running, and like a lot of the firmware is outdated, and I want to update it. So, I don't know. Like my experience right now, whatever date it is today, is that all there is this moment. Past seems very real, have memories of it, can speculate into the future, also seems very real. What might happen? I might have anticipatory anxiety about something that might happen, purely future based, might have a really shitty traumatic memory, past based. Those are not real. They feel real. Time feels very real. I mean, it's a very persistent illusion. But I mean, time is elastic. We kind of know that. I mean, in terms of relativity, it's very relatively real. And what we have is this moment.
So how do you take the knowledge that you're in this moment right now and apply that so that you can accomplish things that maybe you couldn't right now? Like that are things that are going to take a time.
Totally. It's totally a pain in the ass, right? You're like, okay, well, fuck you, guy. Like, you know, I have a future. I have children. Feels very futury to me. You know, they're going to grow up and get old, and you are going to get old and die. And you know, I mean, like time, as I said, it's a very illusion. It's not like an illusion. It's not illusory in the fact that you can tell it's an illusion. Otherwise it wouldn't be an illusion, right? There's no person that's going to sit here and say that, like, you know, I don't get older, or like my hair. Look at my hair, bro. Look at my beard. It's gray.
So you know that you're going to record an album.
I'm working on an album. Right. The album is going to come out in the future.
But that's just as real to you as right now is, like.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I know. I totally get it. I mean, like it's a confusing thing, because it's like, how do you be completely present and understand that the only thing that really is at all is now? That's it. Future, it might never happen. We could be hit by a comet right now. Wouldn't even be that bad.
But communicating even with other people so often is like having to do with coordinating the future, right? Or
coordinating the future, and then or explaining the past.
Sure. So we're spending like half of our time
0% future present based. Most of it,
right?
Yeah.
So you're constantly being pulled in both of those different directions. I guess the side of it that I'm more interested in sharing today is like how you use that mental process and awareness of where you are right now in order to, like, you know, really push yourself, like, and show up with what you're doing, like to truly do your best. You know, I know you have strong feelings about, you know, doing your best.
I do have strong feelings about that. Look, for me, I guess I try to let every moment unfold, because I mean, I am someone who experiences what they call anticipatory anxiety. What's going to happen? Just 2 seconds ago, we were looking at the numbers for my tour, and I said, I feel uncomfortable about this. Now, I know that it doesn't fucking matter, actually. You know, I mean, like, this tour either does really good, it does not good. Does it really matter? No. Not at all. I mean, I can ascribe it value and make it feel like it matters.
Or come up with a theory.
I can totally make up a story that says, if this tour sells out, that my future's better. It could also be that this tour sells out and I die in a car accident. I mean, it could be horrible.
I hope not.
You know what I'm saying? But like that's what I'm saying. It's like, it is totally created in our mind what is good or what is bad. So the things we try to do, almost everyone, I'll speak for myself, the things that I try to do, I'm so done with this thing. Like, you know, when you do this and you go, I'm like, no, I just start correcting people. I was like, stop telling me what I do. Oh yeah, you know when you go to the bathroom and you do that? I'm like, no, I don't do that when I go to the bathroom.
I mean, I think all of comedy is coming for you if we're gonna have to. But I'm with you.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying I do this, so I can talk about what I do. So what happens, what I do, is when I think about something in the future, or I plan something, and I think it's good or bad, or I'm trying to plan something, instead of being. I become a human doing. I would say, how many billions of people we have on the planet now? Let's call it maybe close to 8 now. I would say 7.999 are human doings. How many people are human beings?
How do you feel like that relates to just the process? If we're going to talk about the process of like actually creating the things that you want to create in your life, and like, you know, evolve yourself and become more than you were yesterday, and there are 7.9 billion people out there who are just doing, mostly just trying to like survive.
Just trying to survive.
Yeah. What, you know, I would like to believe that it's possible for, even in the worst circumstances, there to be the opportunity, but I know that there's not. And that's difficult for me to wrap my head around, that like,
yeah, I
even
mean,
in
we're
certain
sitting here.
circumstances-
It's like, if we get thirsty after this podcast, you know, like we can go drink water from a tap. 1 in 6 people can't do that. Right. So like we're in a whole other dimension.
Do you feel like there's a certain responsibility that comes with being in the position to do that?
I mean, yeah, I think that we should be grateful and joyful every moment that we have freedom, the ability to express ourselves, the ability to share like our thoughts on this podcast. Like, let's say one of us had a controversial thought, that we could share it without being like killed, like, which is what it was like if you lived in Russia during the times of like Stalin, or even like now, like or in like China or things like that. So I you know, that, are we heading towards a place where a lot of those liberties are gonna, you know, could be taken away? I think that we should be grateful every moment. And like, I do things that plan for a future, which is doing based. I feel conflicted in that as a species, humanity, I'm like, where have we gone? You know, where have we gone where people are not focused on being present and focused on doing to achieve something in the future? Because I don't think that they're mutually like, it's not like saying that, you know, there's a Taoist phrase. I always recommend everyone read the Tao Te Ching. I like Stephen Mitchell's translation. It's like act without doing, work without effort. And there's another one that says, you know, without trying, the master achieves everything, right? That doesn't mean be a lazy schmuck and do nothing. It doesn't mean like just frivolously blow all your money on trash. It doesn't mean don't care about things and be passive and just say like, oh yeah, everyone's going to die. And like, I don't believe that at all. You know, I work my ass off every day, and I still wake, you know, I do my chanting every day. Now I'm doing that every day. I try to meditate every day. I try to take care of my body. I try to make conscious choices to be the most loving and kind person. And when I slip up and fall on my face, which I do often, I try to correct that to be the most loving and kind person. And when in the moments where I don't do that, I really try my best.
So do you think there's like a strong correlation between your ability to visualize something like a goal in the future that you want to accomplish, and that being the result of a daily practice of constantly returning to that truth? And it's like through the act of becoming more clear to yourself that you inevitably wind up at that destination, in a sense? Or is there kind of a balance between looking out towards the future and sort of imagining what you would like it to be, and that activation of a daily personal practice that drives you closer to those types of outcomes? Like you were saying earlier, a lot of things come down to just luck, right? But a lot of luck is also being prepared for the moment that the luck shows up, so that you're able to actually take advantage of it. So
look, I have 4 keys to success, and it's like 4.1, right? Patience. Some things take time. Passion, you have to have the fire to keep going, to keep moving, to put the fuel in the engine. Persistence, you have to keep going because you have to be patient, and sometimes passion wanes. Sometimes you don't have the passion. And so you have to be persistent and keep going. And then you need perspective, because these are my 4 P's to success. You need the perspective to know when you've arrived, because otherwise people will trick you, and life will trick you. And the conditions of life will trick us to not ever feeling like we've ever arrived anywhere. And that's why it's like people, you see people who have hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars who are fucking miserable.
Yeah.
Because they never know when they've arrived, because their entire metric of success is off base. So you need those 4 things: patience, passions, persistence, and perspective. And my point 1 is a little bit of luck, because
preparation.
Look, man, I do music. I mean, I make a lot of things, right? But one of the things I make is music. There are almost 200,000 songs per day right now at this time of the shooting of this podcast uploaded to Spotify. Okay, 200,000. What do you do with that? Does that mean I shouldn't make music, or I should be discouraged, or I should try less? No. And do I not plan for no, I don't do any of that stuff. I wake up in the morning and I say, what can I do that is going to bring me the most joy? And how do I work at achieving the thing that is going to bring me joy? Which means I have to practice. Like recently, for example, I realized I had plateaued in my piano playing. And I got a little frustrated with that. Now, whose fault is that? Is it the world's fault? Is it Earth's fault or humanity's fault? The man got me down.
Did astrology give you a bad day?
Oh yeah, my Venus is in Mercury's in retrograde, or do I just need to take some piano lessons? So what did I do? I hired a teacher, and I was like, man, this is expensive. Drew, you're a very good piano teacher. I love you. And instead of being like, oh, I'm a professional pianist, I don't need that. I was like, LeBron James has a coach, he gets lessons. He's really good. Not that I watch basketball, but people
but I understand.
But I understand really the concept that I'm the best people in the world put effort into learning more when they find an area where they need to grow. So could I complain about how expensive the lessons are, or how much what percentage of my income it's taking? Well, if it's important to me and I value it, then I do it. And so I'm doing it, and I'm getting better. So I could complain about it, or, make up some story about it. I mean, humans are great about making meanings and stories about everything. Or I could just say, today I would like to be a better pianist. That feels meaningful and valuable to me. For me, it's meaningful and valuable to make better music and more interesting music, and to evolve as a more sophisticated songwriter and composer. So I'm going to invest in studying music theory.
Okay, so since we've been friends, it's almost 15 years, I've seen you now pick up, probably equal to me, so in no way am I trying to call you out for this, but 10 different new mediums where you've just decided, I'm going to sculpt now.
Yeah, you have one behind you.
Right? Look at that. I'm going to sculpt now. You guys built all these yurts now.
I'm an interior decorator now.
Everyone, you've got your necklaces, you've got rare artifacts from all over the world you've collected in our building. You have so many various interests. It seems like a lot of advice from people generally is, pick one thing and focus on one thing.
It's hard for me to advise because everyone is unique, Not everyone gets the opportunity to do the things they love to do, because they have to eat. Well, we think we have to eat. I met a breatharian the other day, by the way. And if you haven't read Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, read that. There's a great part. And they're like, tell us one of your skills. He goes, I don't need to eat. They said, why is that a skill? I said, if you're hungry, you need to eat. Most people think they need to eat, and it seems that we might need to, or drink water, or do things like that.
It would be way more convenient not to eat.
way more.
I mean, it tastes good, but
Think
like,
about
honestly,
what people do when they're
love
hungry. I mean, have you seen what people do when they're real hungry? But I'm just saying, like, I acknowledge my unique privilege in that I was fortunate enough that my music was liked by enough people and I have a good business sense that I was able to develop a life and a career where I'm able to explore those other things because I have to. I have to do it. My soul needs it. I don't know if that's because I uncorked the genie bottle many years ago and the genie got out and it's like, I'm never getting back in now. Like, fuck you, bro. Like I'm out and like, we're going to do stuff in this body. Like, we're going to explore this world. Like, I'm going to try things and I don't really care if you don't like them, actually. Like, if you don't, I remember I sold one of my sculptures at Art Basel. It was my first sculpture I sold. And the first one sold for $25,000, right? I had never made a sculpture. And to be totally fair, my sculptures are literally just sticks. They're like, they're conceptual art pieces. They're more than that.
You put work into it.
I put a lot of work into it, but like, I remember someone coming up to me and I made $0 from this entire exhibition. I donated 100% of it to reforestation and planting trees. And at the end of that, I donated, and I'm not like a super financially wealthy guy, right? Like I sold $90,000 worth of art in 1 week, 3 sculptures, and we donated $90,000. I made $90,000 and I donated $90,000. And people were like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, I don't understand. Like, explain to me what's happening. And I was like, well, I mean, this was not my idea for this sculpture project. A tree outside the studio here told me to do it. I received a transmission. It told me how to do it, what to do, all the materials. I knew nothing about sculpture. And I received this transmission. I did the thing and it said, and you're going to donate 100% of it to planting more of us. And I was like, that seems very unreasonable. And I literally argued with the voice of this tree. And it was like, that's what you're going to do. I was like, whatever. And I was like, I don't think anyone's ever going to buy these, but we'll see what happens. Make a sculpture, sell the sculptures. And this woman comes up to me and she says, did you just sell a stick for $25,000? And I said, 3 for 90. And she's like, what? And I was like, I don't know what to say. I mean, like, I like them. I think they're beautiful. They have a beautiful message. I think they represent something bigger than me. I think real art is an extension of the artist and it represents something so much more. I think that's when you find, like, you know, when you look at, not to compare myself to like a Basquiat or something, but like, you know, when I look at Basquiat's work and when I first saw it, I couldn't comprehend it. And I said, it looks like a 3-year-old made it. And now I see it now with new eyes. And I was like, oh my God, I understand it so much. And now it makes sense to me,
so
you know?
The tree asked you to make the art and in a way directed you almost like an art director.
It told me every material, how to do it and what to do.
In the process of working with the tree, at what point did you acknowledge what was coming from you and what was coming from the tree?
It was a pretty confusing experience, to be honest.
Well, and I'm asking because one of the mediums that you've explored a little bit is AI. And I think a lot of the question is sort of similar here in terms of, you know, we're working with some amount of intelligence, whatever relationship we want to call of it, whether it's a tree or it's a large language model or, you know, right. We've got a diffusion model, whatever, but we're working with different levels of intelligence that are speaking through us or working with us in a deeper way. And I'm wondering where you think the line and what your relationship is with being an artist and being a creator and being a medium literally you are the medium at this point, rather than working with various mediums. Like, how do you identify personally with that interrelationship of all these different things?
Well, I mean, look, I have trouble with IP in the first place because I think it's total bullshit. I mean, I think like the fact that humans think that we own ideas is such a joke. I mean, I say that now, I wouldn't be super happy if someone steals my songs, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't know what to say at this point. Like, I don't feel like I think that things come through us, not from us. That's my experience. My experience as a creator is like, I don't own my ideas. I don't own my songs. I definitely don't own a chord progression. I don't own a melody. I don't own my concepts. You know, that's not what my belief system on art or on anything.
Where's the line between ownership and responsibility?
Well,
because you are responsible for bringing it through.
Yeah, no, that's totally real. But like, I don't need to say like, oh, A minor, G, C, F is mine, and you can fuck yourself if you play a song that way.
Just so everybody knows, the reason he's bringing this up is because musicians and artists will actually get into screaming matches over, I wrote these chords.
I wrote this melody. It's my melody.
David, but other artists.
Oh man, people sue over this, over that, and I'm like,
word sequences. Or
no, but this is the problem.
Changes,
the problem is the fundamental foundation that we built our entire society on is that it's a scarcity model of ownership of things because those things generate resources and money, and like you sell a really good idea, you make a shitload of money, and it's understandable. We've wrapped up this sacred act of communing with the divine, which is the creative process and imaginative thinking, with stuff, things, and money. That's the problem. That's why I still, like, to answer your question before, is like, I say I collaborate with AI. And I've said that to people and they're like, you don't collaborate with AI. And I said, really? Okay, well, I'm a music producer. Let me tell you how this process goes. I find a great guitar player that I like. I invite them into my studio. I tell them to play. I'm like, play something. Last night we said, had this amazing pianist over. I said, he can play anything, just like an AI. It can do anything, any idea, vision. And let's say I use Midjourney, right? Like, that's my medium, as you know. I like to generate images with Midjourney. It can do anything. This pianist can play anything. Now, he just starts noodling around on the piano by himself last night. I would never record what he was playing. He can play anything, but that doesn't mean I like it. And that doesn't mean it's good or bad. It just isn't what I want or what I'm interested in. So what do I say? I said, can you play something a bit more simple? Do you think you could play something like this? Do you think you could play something like that? He plays something. I said, a little bit more like this, maybe a little bit more like that, a little bit slower, a little bit faster. Oh, can you articulate this a little bit more? Can you do this, like that? It's the same thing. It gives me something, some piece of feedback. I give it a little bit more feedback. It gives me some more. That's called collaborating.
It was the same thing with the tree.
And it's the same thing with a large language model. It didn't come up with its own idea. It didn't just spit. It didn't say, ooh, David likes Art Nouveau and Deco and Escher, so here's your image of the day. That would be kind of cool, by the way. Someone should build that.
Free idea.
Free idea. Take it. There you go. It's an idea. It just came. You can have it. It's like, who cares? And
okay, so then wait, that gives me another really important question, which is like, if everything is possible and when everything is possible, how do you choose what to do? Because choosing what to do is actually sacrificing everything else.
Every other choice.
So how are you choosing? Like, what are your criteria for selecting that thing? Because it's very hard for me.
No, I mean, like, look, why I think that what is the next phase of humans involvement in the artistic and creative process. And how is this going to change? Is it's going to be, because I hate to break it to everyone, but like AI is going to do this way better. And all my friends who are like, oh, look at my friend the other day. He was so funny. He's a great producer and great composer. And we had worked on this beautiful neoclassical piece together. And he's like, oh yeah, what it's going to be like music with no soul. I'm like, you're not going to be able to tell.
Yeah.
Like what dimension are you living in? It's good now on version 1. You're not going to be able to tell. Like, you think that you're so sophisticated that you think you're going to be able to tell a real string quartet from an AI string quartet in 3 years from this podcast?
Yeah.
You're out of your mind. You think that you're going to be able to tell the nuance of the human voice in a real song versus an AI generated song 3 years from this podcast? You are out of your mind.
Do you think people
You're
are gonna,
naive.
Do you think people are going to care?
I hope so. I think that the people that are going to be born into this, like native internet users, does a native internet user intrinsically want, I don't know. I'm like thinking about this in my head. Do they want to go to a library?
If you could manifest anything you were thinking of in your head instantly, would it provide you satisfaction, or is there some amount of development that comes from being limited at a point? Like
Andrew Jones and I were like, we wanted to make a slogan, make art hard again. Just because like, it is, one thing we were discussing is it is not a bug that it is hard to make art and music. That's a feature. One of the major problems is people are trying to solve problems that are not problems. They're features. It is a feature of art that it is hard. It's a feature. It shouldn't be that you should just be able to do anything. You have to work for it. Like my dad's, said, he's like, if I just got you anything, if I bought you everything in your life, how would you ever know the value of money? You have to work for it and earn it, and I've spent probably literally 50,000 hours being creative in my life at this point. I spend all day, every day. And I don't care what I'm doing anymore. I'm in a place where I'm kind of really slightly unhinged at this point, probably, and I have that opportunity. I'm blessed. I have the privilege. So I take it. So if the meat sack David Block wants to make jewelry, it makes jewelry. And I go all in. If it wants to make random wood stick sculptures with little pieces of gold, then it does that.
They're very beautiful.
Thank you. If it wants to do whatever it does, it does whatever it does. I'm trying to reprogram. Humans over-identify. I do this, I'm that, and it gets, I think, I got into this conversation earlier with my girlfriend. I was like, I think it probably sounds totally, absolutely cocky, some of the ways that I talk sometimes. And I think if you went by the general ways that we define reality and people and things, I think it probably would. And I think that every human being is capable of incredible genius. Every single one is capable. Will they ever do that? No. They're a bunch of sleepwalking sheep slave people. That's what I really think.
So, do you have hope though that there is some initiation that could help
100%.
people who seek to not live that way?
Yeah.
Right?
I feel like to think it is so egocentric. It's so human egocentric to think that we understand how this works. It's so naive.
This, you mean reality?
Reality.
Yeah.
It is so painfully naive to think that we know what's going on, and that we will ever try to use the scientific method to discover the true meaning of the universe. I really don't believe. I think it's so strange.
How do you understand that though, and not become overwhelmed with being terrified by the absolute enormity of the mystery?
I feel you. I am terrified all the time. I am terrified. Yeah. I mean, like, I'm not terrified.
Well, and I guess it's an unfair question because I know the answer because I'm right there with you. I mean, I think
no, it's like this ineffable, scary
and pulled
beast.
me out from that sort of sleeping state, and we're like, you have potential, come with me, you know. And if it weren't for that, I don't know that I would have been initiated into this act of living my truth and, you know, being so forthright about what my will is and being a little bit.
Look, what's wrong? Here's the thing. What's wrong with it being terrifying? How about that? What's wrong with that? Life is scary. Let it be scary. You know, like, that's why I said, it's like, what is the hack for all of this? There's one. Be present. You know, like, unless, and of course this is easier said than done. That's why I always, like, when I meet with like Buddhist scholars or other scholars of other things, I'm like, you know, I try to pose the big questions of, like, you know, how do you engage with loving kindness in war? How do you be present when you're starving to death? You know, or things like that. Those are hard questions to answer, you know, and I don't have the experience to be able to answer those. Because I've not. I have a house. I have clean water.
Yeah, like at best you can imagine.
At best I can imagine. But at the same time, I can try to be the most present and the most loving and kind that I can be. And there are plenty of examples throughout the history of time of people that had nothing. And you know, when I lived in India for a while. And I have a friend, for example, that she's still in India. She's 20 years old now. Her name is Naina. I met her on my last trip to India, and I met her on the streets of Delhi. Naina has no shoes. She makes little beaded necklaces, which I obviously like beaded necklaces. And she makes little beaded necklaces. We got to talking for a while, and I ended up buying some of her necklaces, and she had a particularly joyous smile that I noticed. And I said, Naina, you have a really special smile. And I just wanted to share that with you. And she said, can I have your information to stay in touch? I said, sure. Stay in touch on WhatsApp. She stays in touch, and she'll call me occasionally. And so I can get some more of her necklaces because she's indebted to the local Indian mafia. She was meant to be or have an arranged marriage. She couldn't even get her arranged marriage because her family had to borrow money from the local Indian mafia. So now she's indebted for what could be the rest of her life to the local mob. Okay? She sells necklaces on the street in Delhi. She doesn't have shoes. Okay? She FaceTimed me the other night at 11 p.m. in front of a McDonald's where she wasn't allowed to sell her necklaces because of the, the G8 summit or something like that. So they had like blocked off the area where she sells her necklaces, some summit UN thing. I've never seen a bigger smile in my life. Never. I'm like, and I said, I was confused. I was complaining about some bullshit that day. I was like, here's a person that has nothing. But does she have nothing? You know, or like, are we playing the wrong game? You know, Naina is happy. She's a happy person. I wouldn't say she's happy. Naina is a joyful person. And she has a shitty set of cards. Really shitty. Like was dealt a really rough hand in this birth. She's genuinely more joyful than most people I know. Really genuinely. It's impressive. I don't even understand it still. I think about it all the time. I think about how can I help alleviate her suffering and get her undebted from her local mafia, where she has to sell little beaded necklaces for 50 cents that take her an entire day to make sometimes. And she's more joyful than me often. I make beaded necklaces too. Like, what did I do wrong? You know, I mean, like, I just don't know. I'm like, maybe we're playing the wrong game, but like.
Okay, so then if we are playing the wrong game, but you still come out the other side having done, you know, what your heart wanted, does it matter?
I don't think this sounds slightly like nihilist, but like, I don't think things matter. I don't. In a quantum physics sense, like there's no actual matter here. This is all just like waves. Well, no, I think that this, well, I mean, it's 85% dark matter, apparently, at least. So we don't even know what that is. But I think that we attach meaning to things. Humans are meaning-making, storytelling machines. I don't mean that in a negative way. I don't mean that like life is meaningless, don't do anything with your life. Like, I mean the opposite of that. Completely the opposite. I think life is beautiful. I think life is love. I think we are love. Life is a loving, kind, it's a little bit rough, or a lot of bit rough. It's tough. It's beat the shit out of you. And I think it is meaningless in terms of like, we made it up. We made this up. It could be like, think about cultural relativism. In different places, things are very meaningful for one group of people and totally disgusting for another group of people. Some people eat their dead. Some people bury their dead. Some people burn their dead. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. We made that shit up. There's nowhere, in my opinion, that says if you burn your dead, you're better. Or if you eat your dead, you're worse. Or if you bury them, you're evil. I don't believe that. I think that we made it up. I think we made up the whole thing. And at any point in time, we get to be the authors and write a new story. So do that. That's what I mean. I think it's meaningless in as much as that we made the meaning. So make whatever meaning you want. Make your life meaningful for you. It doesn't have its own meaning. Like, it's not intrinsically meaningful. We ascribe meaning to it, which is incredibly empowering. We get to be the authors. You have the shittiest cards, you can be Nena. You have I guarantee almost anyone watching this podcast, almost everyone, does not have a shittier set of cards than Nena. Yeah. I'll bet you $100. You message me and I'll pay you $100 if you have shittier cards than Nena. Okay? Like, no way. No way. And that is a joyful being. Like, we have the capacity to cultivate love and joy and express ourselves. And if we're having a really bad time, we can alchemize that into beauty and art and share it with other people to help alleviate suffering.
How do you remember when you forget?
I forget all the time.
Yeah, you know, there's no remembering that all the time. Certainly not for me anyway. And I believe those same things so deeply, but like, there are times when I just completely forget.
Yeah, I mean, like, totally. I experienced my first bit of depression this year.
First ever.
I mean, bad. Mm-hmm. Like, dark thoughts. I never in a million years would have thought that. Never. And I was shocked. I shocked myself. I was like, wow, that's not good. Maybe it is good, maybe it's not good, but it felt pretty bad. And it was pretty surprising and pretty terrifying, to be honest. I mean, I have core things that bring me out of it. I have a general belief system that we are love. You know, I don't over-identify as much as I can. And I mean, who knows? I mean, God forbid something happens and it tests my willpower. I mean, I don't know how this thing goes. But like, I try not to over-identify with my body or my personality, my career. I mean, I do, but I'm trying not to. And in fact, I'm saying I'm not trying not to. I'm trying to continue to identify and align with love. When I speak unkindly, I try to be aware of, oh, I could have done better in that moment. If I took advantage of someone, I see how I can do better. How do I do those things? How do I take out of the dark place? So we were talking earlier. I think there's serious mental health challenges that people are not, you know, from the 3 years of COVID, maybe part one, hopefully not. But I think that there's some serious things that people we're not addressing, you know, that was like really hard for humanity. But for me, I just try to, there are things technologies that we have as a species that can lift us out of the darkness. Singing, dancing, playing music, writing, expressing ourselves, doing something, being curious, being playful, trying to find something wondrous. I mean, you don't have to look very far. You just have to, I mean, just go look at a flower.
It's so wild to me sometimes when I get in that state and I'm like in the house and I'm in my head, I'm in almost a completely different realm. And I walk outside and I stop for a second and like notice a tree or some
like,
plants or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, like
that thing is turning sunlight into food.
But where have I been this whole time that I'm not aware of all of this going on? I was Nate, so
you were in two places. Past, future. That's it. All misery. I mean, unless you're starving to death. And I, as I said, I haven't been in that experience yet. So I'll let you know if I don't ever have any clean water or food, how we deal with it then. I don't know yet. But most of it, if it's not a direct threat to our life, it's past or future. That's it.
So you're not a prepper. I'm just kidding.
I have several life straws.
I have several life straws.
I have several life straws, and I have those Blackbeard fire starters that you can light fire underwater.
Okay. Oh, I saw those ads too.
Those are cool. Yeah. You know, I'm prepared more or less, but I mean, like, I don't know. Like, it's. I think that I get that way all the time. I literally, before we had this call, was looking at the numbers for our tour, and there's a couple shows that I feel, I was like, I feel a lot of anxiety about these. Now, if I take a step back and I'm like, actually, I don't care at all. Actually. Why do I think I care? I think I care. I think because my thinking is the whole cause of all the suffering. I think I care because I think it matters that my shows sell out. I think it matters that because I've identified that my success or my acceptance or, you know, my well-being, my identity, like really powerful core human things.
Survival.
I've wrapped it up in that. Does that matter at all? No. And if I go outside when we're done with this, I'm going to listen to the creek because there's a creek. And I'm going to be like, that creek is so beautiful. And I'm going to, you know, I don't know. I do my best to do that because there's like the reality. That's the funny part about this. You know, you were saying earlier, it's like people are just sleepwalking. I don't blame them. They have the most impressive brainwashing propaganda shit that's full force all the time.
If you want to disassociate and just tune out, it's so available. It's never been so available.
It's never been so available. I watched this, I can't remember this doctor, I think it was on like Rich Roll's podcast. And he was talking about, he's like, we are the last generation. And this isn't even me because he was like 10 years older. He's like, we're the last generation that if we were bored, we had to figure out something to do. We had to use our imagination.
Yeah.
That will never be again. Until we maybe all bomb ourselves into the Stone Age or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is necessarily for that one. Because I definitely remember like the times before the computer, building forts and running around with the neighbors and doing all kinds of activities. You know what I mean? We're like on the very edge of that last generation. No, because I was like 10 or 11 probably when I got a computer and was like, oh, this is amazing.
I want to be on this every day forever.
I could learn infinite things with this.
Yeah, look, I think generally, I don't think it's the time to be discouraged. I think it's the time to dig deep to find out what's meaningful for us and to understand that that's what matters. It doesn't matter what's meaningful for everyone else. It feels that way. If you want to make a career out of it, it does ultimately matter, right? Like if a bunch of people were like, this is the shittiest podcast ever, you may or may not continue to do it.
Totally.
Right? You might continue to do it.
Yeah.
I mean,
probably not.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're right. So there's a feedback loop here, but ultimately, let's say hypothetically, you left every single podcast conversation and you were like, I feel so alive right now.
Oh, I mean, getting to talk to my friends is the most exciting part of the whole thing.
But I'm saying like beyond whatever it is, whatever your metric, that's meaning, right? Yeah. You gave a meaning of why it is. I'm not saying, but whatever it is, you left and you said, I feel so joyful. I feel so alive. I feel so connected. I feel so fill in the blank.
Well, how do you draw the line then? I mean, I think there's partly what I'm interested in, and I think the people who are watching are interested in, is being able to both be fulfilled in terms of having passions and hobbies and things that you love. You know, for example, like I got really into lapidary and
I remember
carving gemstones and I was, mining fire agates. I wanted to be the most ethical, like source to finished product, the whole thing. I learned the entire process.
I remember asking, I was like, how long does it take to do one of these things?
They were like hundreds of hours per like little gem, right? And like the retail on one of these things, like $100. It doesn't work out. And I didn't care. Like it wasn't necessarily the point of it when I was doing it, right? Like I was in communion with the stone, and the stone was teaching me so much that it didn't really matter that I wasn't going to try and sell these things and make any money. I still put my time into it, although there was a point where I had to like get super real with myself and be like, all right, I think I maybe shouldn't spend like another couple $1,000s on rocks because this is just a hobby. This is and so there is kind of a point. I had to give myself a couple of months of like learning it and figuring it out to like kind of reach that conclusion. But like once I got there, I was like, all right, I need to get real right now. This is not going to be like any kind of financially prosperous career thing. So let me get back to figuring out where I am going to get that feedback or whatever. Is it the feedback that is like helping you to sort of course correct in that process?
I mean, I would say I value feedback. I mean, I don't create in a vacuum. I'm not that kind of creator. I mean, I know people that do that. I'm not that person. And I would say that people's input does impact my choices. You know, if I was making, to a certain extent, like when I started with the sculptures, I was enjoying it and I did it because I had to do it, like the lapidary work.
Yeah.
Now, at a certain point, people were like, those are really beautiful. I really like those. That fueled my passion for it. So you could say that you could easily, kind of extrapolate and say like, oh, well, you did things to receive validation or whatever those things are. Maybe not. I would say it definitely fueled it. Could you also say that like it was validating that I was on a good course naturally? Yeah. I mean, I'd say probably both are true for me personally right now. I haven't ever pursued something creatively that no one liked.
Yeah.
I haven't ever done that I liked. I'm like, for example, my paintings I really don't like. I feel like I'm a pretty terrible painter. If all of a sudden everyone said my paintings were incredible, would I paint? I don't think so. I don't really enjoy it because I don't think that they're very good. There are plenty of things that I think I'm very good at, but painting is not one of them. So I think if everyone all of a sudden was like, oh my God, your paintings are incredible, I don't know if I would do it.
You'd probably start questioning their judgment.
I would. I would be like,
your judgment any good?
That's what that's probably exactly what I would do. To be honest, I'd be like, you obviously have bad taste, but like, look, it's beautiful to receive feedback. We're not like, for example, like this story of like the Buddha and being a bodhisattva. It's like, could you just sit and meditate in a cave? Could one sit and meditate in a cave all day and potentially achieve enlightenment? Theoretically. But like, what does it says about like they say about bodhisattvas is like they come back, they've achieved enlightenment and they come back to share that, because it's like until everyone is enlightened, it doesn't matter. And I kind of feel that way about creating, like if I was the absolute only person that liked my music, that might be a little bit selfish in the end. I create music that helps unify humanity because that's important for me to feel this unity together. And when someone comes to me and says like, I birthed my child listening to your music, or you, or someone said, Juliana. Juliana did. Or if someone says, I was with my grandmother in hospice and held her hand as she left her body and died listening to your music. And I can sit here and say like, I feel like ultimately I'm feeding that idea of, of finding meaning in life, that I matter, that I've done something impactful, and that I've, ultimately at the end of the day, tried to alleviate the suffering of other people. I could ultimately say and try to be nihilist and say like, well, that doesn't matter either. But for me, if there's anything that's like, that does matter, it's be loving, kind, try to do something with your life that brings joy and inspires other people. And, that's how I choose to live my life. I try to do things that I enjoy and that other people enjoy too.
I definitely am a big fan.
Yeah. And like, is it hard when you make your passion your profession? Fuck yeah. It's really hard.
I mean, especially getting your identity wrapped up in your work and having people maybe not love everything.
Not love everything. Not love most things.
Yeah.
I mean, like, man, my new song, I think I looked the other day, I think it was getting like 70 plays a day. Now, maybe at one point that would have been great, but like I have other songs that get like 20,000 plays per day.
Right, you put out the Gone Gone Beyond song at like the same time, all of a sudden that one.
And I'm like, wait, does that mean that song is better? Because, for example, I'm putting out a song in a week from now. I have no expectation that that's going to be a big song. Do I like it any less? No. would it be really hard if I was pursuing that as my income?
Yeah.
Yes, that would be really hard. I don't know. I don't actually have, I used to feel like I had really good advice for this.
Yeah.
And I don't anymore because I'm a little bit torn between like being a monk and being a householder, as they say in certain spiritual Hindu and Buddhist traditions. I'm an art monk right now. That's the phase of my life I'm in. Do I recommend that everyone else should do that? Not necessarily.
It's pretty hard.
It's really hard. It's really hard. And it requires a lot of trust and a lot of surrender because, I mean, man, I don't know what to say. Like, it's a weird place to be. Like, my perspective that I'm sharing on this podcast is hard to live by.
Well, I mean, I've watched you work your ass off for 15 years to get to the point to be able to have this conversation. And
yeah,
I don't think at any point along that entire way you would have ever said, hey, I have this all figured out. Follow me.
Follow me.
That was never part of the conversation ever.
Listen to me.
I think even in some of my lowest moments where I had no idea what to do with my life or where I should go or anything, and you would just like randomly call me and be like, come turn a left here or right here or left here, and I would just like wind up in paradise somewhere. At like the exact right moment in my life. Even then, when my entire life was falling apart, I'm going like, why? What's the point? Like, never once did you say, this is the answer, right? Like, that was never part of the deal. And I certainly don't think it is at this point. Even more so now, there's like an amount of, we're all figuring this out. Certainly the entire music industry and art in general and the economy in the world and all these things have changed so radically, even in the time we've known each other, that to try and predict anything based on the past at this point is it's nearly impossible.
Yeah, I mean, no point.
We're all kind of figuring it out together. And really, my hope is that we can use the opportunity to reach the people we already are able to communicate with to help spread some encouragement at the minimum, that it's worth being brave and taking the effort, committing to something that is beyond where you believe that you are, wanting to make the world a better place, leave things better than you found them. I largely have been inspired by you living your truth day in, day out in order to become that and get to that point. So to see you here now, looking back on it a little bit, although we're present in this moment, but to acknowledge the process of, let's look at it this way. Looking back right now, could you have imagined then that we would be sitting here? Not necessarily in this exact context, but in terms of where both of our paths have sort of in parallel gone through these, I
mean, no, not in a million years.
Yeah.
I mean, I think even just living in California again. I mean, when I lived in India, in my early 20s, and I was like, I am never, ever, ever coming back here. Never. I mean, there's in a million chapters. I mean, like, I think, we get so caught up in our stories in those moments that like, this is the way it is forever, and it's like, no, the only constant is things change. They change all the time. That's the nature of the universe. Everything is in flux all the time. So it's like, we're always going to be changing. I never thought, did I ever think that I would be here? Absolutely not. I mean, I feel like there are some things that have still stayed the same, and it's, the way I've treated people's always stayed the same, like I've always loved everyone. I've always loved people as much as I think they make shitty choices, like really shitty. I've always loved people. My mom always said, you don't have to like everyone, but you can love them. I don't have to like your choices, but I love you. That's never changed for me, but that's consistent with my belief system that we are love. We forget that.
I mean, you also, though, like regularly have to sacrifice spending time with people that you love, given that there's quite a few of them, I imagine, on the planet at this point. And you still have goals and ambitions and things you want to accomplish, which like you've got to pick and choose. And so there's still like determining.
I'm still taking meetings with our band and our planning and our business manager and the manager and the tour director and this, and we're going to plan that. And then we'll do this year and then that next year. And to be honest, I care less and less about it every day. I care less and less about the planning portion because I don't think it's the point. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm not saying I don't receive value from making intelligent choices and planning. I'm just not totally sure that's the way anymore. I don't think it means don't be ambitious. I don't think it means don't practice.
Yeah.
But
planning in and of itself is almost like a procrastination of doing.
Yeah, in a way. And it's like, look, if me practicing piano was only to be able to achieve playing better music, then I'd miss the whole point. It's like Alan Watts said, he's like, the purpose of dancing is not to get to the end. The purpose of music is not to get to the end of the music. It's called playing music. It's not called working music.
You know, one of my favorite things he said about music was that it wasn't all about the sound happening at once, but that you needed the empty spaces in between things in order to tell the difference, like with the contrast between when there's actually sound and when there's not sound. And I hadn't ever considered that. I always, playing music growing up, I always thought, that I needed to write a song to be having something driving it forward and to be
it's like happiness and sadness.
Filling a space. I was like filling this space with sound. And I heard Alan Watts say in a recording, it's the gaps, actually. It's the space in the drums that gives them their rhythm. Without the space, it doesn't allow that. And it hit me like, oh my God, I can't believe that had never occurred to me. But that
you can't just have both notes the whole time.
Yeah, or it's just way too loud and overwhelming. It's the same thing with painting. I think when I started painting, I was just like throwing every color I could on the canvas and like having these giant like rainbow explosions because I was so excited to like see color and contrast and values and to see them in relationship with each other and trying to understand the shapes and meanings and all these different things, right? There's all these different kind of ways to explore those, but it wasn't that I was limited by going to the store and just buying the whole rainbow, And so at that point, it was like the same problem with AI, right? It's like you can have anything, but if you can have anything, what do you choose?
And that's the most important thing. That's the future. The future is going to be, what do we choose? And that's how this is going to be. That's how we're going to differentiate. And someone's going to be like, I like what David's choices are. I like what Nate's choices are. I like what Genevieve's choices are. Because the reality is like all my friends were like, oh well, this is bad. Like AI images aren't that good. I'm like, you literally have no idea what you're talking about. Like, and just give it 2 more years.
Yeah, give it like a month.
Give it like 1 more month, and it's like, I think, if we're, thinking about some things if we're just going to circle back to the Alan Watts thing, maybe a good place to close out. It's not, life is a dance. This is a dance. It's not a race. It's a dance. Okay. And what is the point of dancing? It's dancing. That's it. It's its own thing. It's not to do it as fast as possible or to get to the end. That's not the point of the dance. The point of dancing is dancing. That's it. Like, just dance.
Did you see the study that came out last week that said that dancing was actually the #1 most therapeutic practice that you could do for both depression and anxiety.
No, but I
It
believe
scored
it.
like almost an order of magnitude higher than every other thing, like exercise and diet, all these various other things that came down. But dancing was an entire
believe it.
order of magnitude greater in terms of its effect on well-being. And
Maybe that's because that's what's actually happening. Like the whole illusion,
just Shiva dancing.
it's just a dance. And like, that's it. That's the whole deal. Nothing more. We're overthinking the whole thing. It's a big cosmic dance. You know, there's nothing, it's not a race. You know, and I think that the sooner that we can like start to think about our lives a little bit differently, instead of thinking that life is a race to get to the end. No, don't think that way. You know, you don't need to think that way. It's a life is a dance, and it's meant to be danced, and that's it. And that's like you said, like, what do you do when you're depressed? What do you do in this? It's like, just align yourselves with the way that things are, you know? I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that there are some objective things that we can look at. And I would say that feels like one of them, you know?
Well, I personally am very grateful to have your music scoring the dance as I'm living it. So thank you.
My pleasure. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks, guys. Bye.